As we know that the cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life, inside the cell, in the cytoplasm, there are various kind of metabolic processes happening continuously and simultaneously in every second. Now, these metabolic processes are further catalyzed and regulated by a special kind of biomolecule called as the enzyme. And what this enzyme do is that it generally accelerate the reaction, it generally speed up the rate of reaction, and also it lowers the activation energy of the metabolic process. Apart from this, if we look at the nature of enzyme, so most of the enzymes are protein in nature, meaning that they are made up of protein. But around 1980, scientists discovered that there are another molecules which are functioning like an enzyme and they are not protein in nature. So they further carried out their experiment and investigated that these another molecules are none other than the RNA. And we know that the RNA is a genetic material in some viruses, and in case of us, it functions mostly in the protein synthesis process. So the RNA which were functioning like an enzyme, the scientists termed it as the ribozyme. And this ribozyme is also called as the RNazyme. This ribozyme is capable of catalyzing specific biochemical reaction, and also it performs the common activities of cleavage, ligation of RNA and DNA, and also it is involved in the peptide bond formation. So these are the two scientists, Thomas Zach and Sidney Altman, who discovered the ribozyme while working on the bacterial cell Tetrahymena thermophila. The interest of research of both these scientists were different. Thomas Zach was interested in studying the process of transcription, where he was curious to know that which is the gene or which is the gene product, other gene which is involved in the process of transcription for making the pre-mRNA molecule functional mRNA. He was looking for an protein molecule which is responsible for removing the intron, but he further found that the intron itself remove itself from that mRNA pre-mRNA molecule, so that the resultant mRNA will be functional. Whereas Sidney Altman was curious to learn the process of that how the inactive pre-tRNA gets processed to the functional tRNA. So he also further investigated and found that there is a ribonucleoprotein called as the RNSP, which is cleaving of the precursor non-functional part from the pre-tRNA and making it functional. So this was the story of these two scientists who discovered the ribozyme. In the year 1989, these both scientists, Thomas Zach and Sidney Altman, got the Nobel Prize for their discovery of catalytic properties of RNA. And the self-catalyzing property of this RNA molecule was further named as the ribozyme by the scientist Kelly Kruger in the year 1982. And this was the whole story about the investigation and discovery of the ribozyme. Following are the list of some of the naturally occurring ribozymes which were discovered after the exploration of the self-catalyzing property of RNA. The ribozymes are self-splicing introns group 1 and group 2, RNSP, hammerhead ribozyme, rRNA peptidal transferases, hairpin ribozyme, riboswitches, hepatitis delta virus, and the list goes on. Next is the classification of ribozyme. So on the basis of size and structure, the ribozymes can be categorized into two classes, that is large ribozymes and small ribozymes. Large ribozymes are those ribozymes which are made up of 100 to 3000 nucleotides. The examples are self-splicing group 1 and group 2 introns. Whereas the small ribozymes are those ribozymes which are made up of 30 to 150 nucleotides. And the examples are hammerhead ribozyme, hairpin ribozyme, and etc. I'll be discussing only three ribozymes in detail. The first one is the self-splicing group 2 introns. Now from the name itself you can understand that the intron here possess a self-catalyzing property. Hence it is termed as the self-splicing ribozyme. Now this ribozyme, that is self-splicing group 2 intron, is found in bacteria and in the mitochondrial and chloroplast genomes of fungi. It is also found in plants, protists, and other annelid worms. Now, to understand the working mechanism of this ribozyme, let us consider an example. Let us suppose that there is a cell, and inside the cell in the cytoplasm, a most important protein is lacking. And this protein is important for other chemical reactions which are taking place. So to make protein, the cytoplasm, what it does is it sends a message to the DNA via different chemical messengers, and those intermediate chemical messengers then triggers to the DNA onto the gene which carries or which generally have the coding material of that protein. So the region of the DNA which has the information about that protein gets unwind, then primer comes, polymerase comes, and a transcription process take place, as a result of which mRNA is formed. Now this mRNA which is formed is not functional. It consists various codings as well as non-coding regions inside it. So at this stage the mRNA is termed as the pre-mRNA. So to make this non-functional pre-mRNA functional, the pre-mRNA undergoes various post-transcriptional process before leaving the nucleus. So here, in case of these organisms which I have mentioned earlier, the intron, which I said that is the non-coding region of the pre-mRNA, shows catalytic property, and it plays a major role in making the pre-mRNA, non-functional pre-mRNA, the functional ones, which is the mature mRNA. Now, how this introns makes this non-functional pre-mRNA to functional pre-mRNA, let us see that how it works. So over here you can see the diagram of the pre-mRNA. The pre-mRNA consists both the coding region as well as the non-coding region. The coding regions are called as the exons, whereas the non-coding regions are called as the introns. Okay. Now both these coding as well as non-coding regions are made up of nucleotides. And there is a specific arrangement in the intron which makes the intron self-catalyzing one. Okay. So the intron possesses most important parts. The intron has a 5' splice site, which is also called as the donor site, and this part is located towards the left side of pre-mRNA, towards the 5' site. Okay, and at the molecular level it is represented as AGGU. Here the AG is the part of the exon and the GU is the part of the intron. Okay, the second part is the 3' splice site. It is also called as the acceptor site, and this 3' splice site is located toward the right of the pre-mRNA. Okay, and at the molecular level it is also represented by AGGU. Here the AG falls under the part of the intron, whereas the GU falls under the part of the exon. Okay, in between the intron there is the most important part located called as the branch point. Now this branch point is marked by adenine containing nucleotide. Okay, so and towards the left of this branch point the nucleotides are arranged in such a way that they are purine rich, whereas towards the right of the branch point the nucleotides are arranged in such a way that they are pyrimidine rich. Okay, as we know the structure of the nucleotide in case of the RNA, that the nucleotide of RNA has a nitrogen base. Okay, it has a phosphorus group and also it has the pentose sugar. Okay, but here the pentose sugar doesn't lack any oxygen molecule on its second carbon. Okay, so as I said, the branch point is the main and the most important point. Here the hydroxyl group of the adenine containing nucleotide acts as a nucleophile. Okay, and as a result of which it creates a nucleophile attack, and it attacks on the 5' splice site. As a result of this attack, the bond which is present between the two G's gets broken. Okay, and as a result of which the exon is set free, whereas the left part of the introns gets separated from the exon. Okay, and that free part of the intron gets attached to the branch point, as a result of which a lariat like structure is formed. Okay, the intron is not fully separated from the exon, but one side of it gets separated. Okay, and here over this in the second diagram you can see the free exon. Okay, now this free exon has two parts. Okay, the 5' and the 3'. Now over this 3' side of this free exon there is a hydroxyl group which is generated, okay, at the guanine containing nucleotide at the third carbon. of pentose sugar. Okay, so the guanine containing nucleotides third carbon of pentose sugar has generated an hydroxyl group. Now, this guanine containing hydroxyl, this guanine containing nucleotide having free hydroxyl group on its third carbon of pentose sugar acts as a nucleophile. Okay, now as a result of which a second nucleophile attacks is generated by this guanine containing free hydroxyl group. Okay, and as a result of which the this hydroxyl part gets attacks between the two G's of the 3' splice site, as a result of which the bond which is present between the two G's gets broken, as a result of which the introns get fully separated now. Okay, and after the separation of the intron, the exons get ligated automatically. So in the last diagram, you can see that the exons get ligated and the mature mRNA is formed and the intron is removed. Okay, so this was the whole working mechanism of the self-splicing group 2 intron, that how it shows the catalytic property and how it removes itself from the pre-mRNA so that it can make the pre-mRNA one functional mRNA. The second ribozyme is the RNSP. The RNSP stands for the ribonuclease P. It is an essential ribozyme which is involved in the processing of the tRNA. Okay, and this ribozyme is found, this RNSP ribozyme is found in all living organisms. The RNSP is an endoribonuclease in nature, and it requires a divalent metal ion such as the magnesium ion for its activity. Now let us understand the mechanism of this ribozyme RNSP. Now suppose there is a cell and in the cell requires a tRNA. Okay, so the cytoplasm then sends a message to the DNA via several chemical messengers. Now these intermediate chemical messengers then triggers to the DNA. They triggers on that part of the DNA which consists the information regarding the making of tRNA. Okay, so that part of the DNA having the information about making the tRNA gets unwind, and as a result of which a special kind of primer and polymerase get attached, and thus tRNA is formed. Okay, but this tRNA is not functional one. It is the inactive one and it is the non-functional one tRNA. Okay, it consists several non-coding regions inside it. Okay, so before leaving the nucleus, this inactive tRNA undergoes post-transcriptional process, as we have seen in the process of the protein formation, where the pre-mRNA undergoes processing, and after processing, the mRNA gets functional. It gets rid of all its non-coding part. Okay, so here also the tRNA undergoes processing. Okay, the inactive tRNA consists a lot of non-coding region inside it. You can see in this diagram over here. Okay, in the first diagram towards the left side, there is a structure of the inactive tRNA. Okay, now this tRNA has a lot of non-coding regions. Okay, so at the 5' end there is a non-coding part, at the 3' end there is a non-coding part, and in between the arm there is a non-coding part. Okay, so these non-coding regions are removed by particular enzymes. Okay, so the non-coding part which is present towards the 5' end, okay, is removed by the RNAsP. Okay, you can see over here that there is a single-stranded region, and after that there is a double-stranded region towards the 5' end. So as I said that this ribonuclease P is endoribonuclease in nature. So what it does is it comes towards the tRNA 5' end of the pre-tRNA molecule, and it cleaves between the bond which is present between the single-stranded region and the double-stranded region, okay, towards the 5' end. As a result of which the single-stranded region gets separated from the 5' end and only the double-stranded region has left. Okay, so this was the working mechanism of the RNSP, and the different regions of the tRNA is further removed by the different enzymes that I'll be not discussing here. Okay, I was only focusing on the ribozyme whose name is RNSP. Okay, now this RNSP in case of bacteria is formed of RNA and protein. In case of bacteria, it is formed of one RNA and one protein. But in case of the eukaryotes, in case of the humans, it is formed of one RNA and 11 protein subunits. Okay, and in different organisms, it can be made up of different subunits or proteins. Okay, so this was the working mechanism of RNSP, that it cleaves the bond between the single stranded region and the double stranded region at the 5' site of the inactive tRNA, and thus by cleaving the non-coding the single stranded non-coding region out, it makes the tRNA functional. Okay, the last ribozyme that I'll be discussing here is the RNSH. RNSH is found in almost all organisms, but it plays a major role in virus. And in humans, it is involved in mitochondrial genome replication. And in vitro, it is used by scientists to make cDNA libraries. Now, let us understand the mechanism of RNSH in vitro. Now, suppose we have only the mRNA part. So, if we have to make the DNA copy from this mRNA part, what scientists do is they treat this mRNA molecule with the primer, and after the primer gets attached, they treat this mRNA with reverse transcriptase and DNTPs. The reverse transcriptase enzymes then add DNTPs, and as a result of which a DNA is formed. So here you can see, and in the third diagram you can see that a hybrid of mRNA and DNA has formed. So after that the DNA is formed, the scientists want to remove this DNA part from the mRNA part. They want to separate this mRNA and DNA part. So what they do is they treat this hybrid with an enzyme called as with an ribozyme called as the RNSH, and this RNSH then eats out the mRNA part, leaving behind only the DNA part. Okay, as a result of which at the end of the reaction only DNA part is left, and this single stranded DNA is further replicated, and number of copies is formed by with the help of PCR. Okay, so this was the working mechanism of the RNSH in vitro.